through until midday. And this hour we're joined by Matt Crockett, Kāinga Ora Chief Executive. At the start of February, the government announced a plan to get Kāinga Ora back on track. The new cost-saving plan included the sale of around 900 older homes annually, replacing them with newer, simpler builds. Under the new plan, debt was also forecast to be $1.8 billion lower in 27-28 compared to that of the 23 forecast. Kāinga Ora Board Chair Simon Murta joined me in studio at the time, but there were questions asked that he felt were better answered by his Chief Executive, Matt Crockett. Talk about throwing you under the bus. Thank you very much for coming in, Matt. Nice to have you.
Thank you very much for having me. No, I think of it more as opening an opportunity for me to connect with you. So
that's a lovely way of putting it. Why on earth did you take on the job? It was huge. And what was being asked of the new government as compared to the former government was completely different to the charter that had been there before.
Yeah, so this came out of left field for me. I had worked with Simon before, but when he put the opportunity to me, I didn't have to think too hard. And the main reason I've done it is because Kāinga Ora and what it does for New Zealand, and in particular our most vulnerable communities, is really, really important. And I got a lot of experience, not in the public sector and certainly not in state housing, but a lot of experience with turnarounds and transformations. And so what was really being asked was to get Kāinga Ora refocused on its core social housing mission and to just get it operating better, more cost effectively, doing good things for our tenants and doing that in a really cost efficient way, more cost efficient way that was there. So I had some skills that were relevant for that.
So when you came into the job, did you have a look at the books and think, what on earth? Because I can remember asking the former chief executive, how many chances do people get and how do you decide if their behaviour has improved? Like if you get a second chance because you trash the place, how do you measure that there are behaviours? There were no measurements in place with that kind of policy. They didn't seem to keep track of how much damage had been caused, what happened next. Like the record keeping was really poor. There was a really nice philosophy, but very poor record keeping. Is that what you found when you came in?
What I would say is that the policy of the day, which was around the sustaining tenancies, really heavily weighted towards making sure tenants stayed in their properties. And so I think the focus wasn't as sharp as it probably could have been on setting clear boundaries and sticking to them and keeping track of those things. That was clearly a very clear direction from the new government at that time. And that's what we've been following through on. And so, with that shift in policy, we've been putting a lot of focus on being a fair but more firm landlord around things like disruptive behaviour and rent arrears.
Because the people who are impacted generally when tenants behave badly are the next door neighbours, so it's other Kāinga Ora tenants who are behaving well and paying their rent on time and trying to live good lives who are most severely impacted when tenants go bad.
Well, I'm glad you raised that, Kerre, because the vast majority of our tenants are really good
They
tenants.
are, yeah.
They're good Kiwis, just living their life. And I think during that sustaining tenancies period, there was an overweight to the kind of the rights of the individual versus the rights of the neighbours and the wider community. And I think we've got that needed to be shifted. And I think we're getting the balance right on that, because we also don't want to just kick people out willy-nilly either. But there is definitely a need to look after neighbours, many of whom are Kāinga Ora tenants, but also who are just members of the public. And I don't think under that regime those settings were quite right, and we're just getting that balance better now.
I just don't understand where the shift came, whereby people abuse the privilege of a state house. When we have a former Prime Minister, John Key, who famously grew up in a state house. A lot of Kiwis either grew up in a state house or had parents who did. My dad got a state house and grew up there in Christchurch, and not one of his siblings or himself needed a state house after that. It was the opportunity and the leg up that the state provided. They certainly wouldn't have dreamed of trashing their home, and I just don't understand what happened where a privilege and an opportunity was something to be destroyed.
Well, I think there's a couple of things that were going on. One of them is you have to remember that a lot of our tenants are under quite challenging life circumstances, and sometimes they lose their cool. But the real problem is when there's not clear boundaries and they're not policed, then people get a little bit out of control, right? And what we're seeing now with this clearer boundaries and clearer follow-through on it is the vast majority of people, their behaviour is changing. So most people who get a Section 55A notice, which is the notice which is you're on warning for having shown some kind of disruptive behaviour, most of them go, well, I don't want to lose my house. I'm going to change my behaviour. So I think it was the combination of those things that led to too much stuff happening that was allowed to continue.
Yes, and as you say, it's a teeny tiny proportion of Kāinga Ora tenants, but so much time and so much money was being spent on them as opposed to the wider Kāinga Ora community.
Yeah, I'm not sure so much more money being spent on them, but there was
having
more...
to redo the houses at time and time again.
Yes, correct. Yeah, and look, it's definitely not a right. It's a privilege to have a house, and I think the vast majority of our tenants absolutely get that.
Yeah, and we've seen with the tenancy behaviours a 600% increase in formal warnings, 63 evictions for violent or threatening behaviour in the past 10 months. Now, those evictions can only happen once you've been through the tenancy tribunal, isn't that right?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. So you're following the process and you have to go through a process. You can't just say, right, that's it, you're out, gone.
Absolutely. So we will issue the formal 55A notice, and there's a series of warnings that happen before the termination. And most importantly, we'll be working really closely to try and understand what's going on, what's sitting behind it, how can we get help for this tenant, how can we help them course correct. So we put a huge amount of work into trying to avoid terminations, and all termination enforcements I sign off on personally. But sometimes tenants just won't engage, won't get help, and they leave us no choice but to terminate. And it's sad when that happens, but they've left us no choice.
When it comes to the enforcement action, and when it comes to seeing the 600% increase in formal warnings, was it just that the previous administration hadn't been issuing warnings, or is it now a higher standard of behaviour as expected? Or, I mean, 600% increase seems an awful lot.
Yeah, I don't think it's because there's more disruptive behaviour going on. So I think the policy and the boundaries were less clear, and as a result, there was less clarity around when to formally follow through. Because obviously, I think all along, if there's violent stuff or really bad stuff, then things were being taken. But it was just not clear enough and not followed through enough.
Okay. Dean has a question that I was going to ask, actually, Dean, but I'll let you do it. Dean, you have a question for Matt.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Matt. Yeah, the previous head, going back a wee while now, I can't remember, and it's a matter I've got interest in because I was 50 years a frontline police officer, and the head said, okay, we've got these terribly disruptive kinds, we've got to kick them out. What do we do with the young children? And that was the excuse. I'm wondering how you've dealt with that aspect.
Matt? Yeah,
sure.
Where do they go?
Thank you for the question. Because look, children are often impacted, and that's why we put a huge amount of focus into trying to avoid the situation where we need to terminate in all cases, but particularly when there's children involved. But sometimes we have no option but to follow through, really, and we will again try and broker connecting the family with help, connecting them with other housing providers, community housing providers or transitional housing, etc., that may be able to take them. But sometimes that's not possible, and unfortunately people are affected, including children. But we really are left no option if there's very disruptive behaviour or if tenants are just refusing to pay rent over extended periods and refusing to engage. So we do everything we can to avoid it, but sometimes that is an unfortunate situation.
But you try and do what you can to put them with aid agencies that can provide them with other accommodation.
Absolutely, yeah. And like I mentioned, every single termination enforcement I sign off personally, and the team has gone through everything they possibly could before it ever gets to me.
Thank you. Newstalk ZB. Thank you, Dean. 0800 80 10 80 is the number to call if you have a question regarding Kāinga Ora, its operations. Now is your time to ask the man in charge, Matt Crockett, Newstalk ZB 1016.
Thinking of selling your business? Think Barker Business Brokerage. Go to barkerbusiness.co.nz. Licensed REAA 2008.
What do you call a dishwasher that dries glassware and plastic?
I'd call it amazing.
Wrong. It's the Bosch Series 6.
I was close.
Extra dry option. Helps dry those finicky items.
And it's so quiet, you can still watch your show while the dishes are washing.
And you can even control and monitor it from your smartphone.
I was right, it's amazing.
Fair enough, you were right again.
And at the amazing price of just $1,499.
At 100% Magnus Benro, we are amazing.
You're right.
Feel the breeze in your hair, the kiss of salt on your skin, and the warm embrace of the sun. While imagining is fun, living it is better. At Hoppers Waterways destinations in Whangarei, Auckland and Coromandel. Drive in and let dream coastal living be your everyday reality. Opportunities are flowing and sections are selling now. For more details, navigate to hoppers.co.nz. Hoppers. Live where others holiday.
Mad Monday is your #1 Rugby League podcast.
On the latest episode, you can join myself, Mania Stewart and Chris Key as we plan a national day of mourning for Mitch Barnett's ACL. Plus, we have a look at the rest of the Warriors' upcoming schedule, including a couple of byes and a couple of soft games. And book our flights to the grand final.
Mad Monday, brought to you by 4 and 20. Listen on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, Stephen from Ian Hunt Flooring. Broomworth carpet sale now on. Plus, I can offer you 500 days interest-free terms. Q-card TCs and lending criteria apply. Only at Ian Hunt Flooring, Albany and Mount Wellington.
Ian Hunt Flooring.
The big sale of the year is on now at Hunter Home. Save a massive 20 to 50% off everything in store. That's at least 20% off all sofas, modulars, dining, homewares and more. Don't miss out, limited time only. Only at Hunter Home.
At MetLife Care, they love showing visitors around, so head along to Auto Ridge Village for tours on Saturday, June 7th from 11 a.m. and enjoy performances from the Royal Artillery Band from 12 p.m. For more info, visit metlifecare.co.nz.
Get it sorted with cheap as deals. Save over 40% on Top Flight Wild Bird Cakes, 300 grams, now $5. Plus, grab a 5-metre RGB Orbit strip light, just $30. Get in quick, limited stock, cheap as deals, and Sunday at Mitre 10.
Jason Pine, Best Sports Reader, Presenter or Commentator at the 2025 New Zealand Radio and Podcast Awards.
Hamish Kerr for the gold medal! Kiwis can fly! And Hamish Kerr scales his Everest!
Do you think you'll be different in an All Blacks environment than you were in the Crusaders environment?
What do you think?
Well, I think you probably will be. Sail GP CEO Sir Russell Cootes. You're not coming back to Christchurch, are you?
This just isn't working.
Your award-winning station, Newstalk ZB.
Newstalk ZB. You're with Kerre Woodham and you're with Matt Crockett, Kāinga Ora Chief Executive, 1020. John, you have a question for Matt.
Yeah, Matt, I live in an area in Auckland where all the state houses have been pulled down and they're just vacant sections, and they've been like that for some time now, and we've been told that the houses are going to be built to market value houses, not to return to state houses, but all around us the houses are multi-storey and lots of more people coming in. I'd just like to know what the policy is on those properties that are sitting vacant and have done for probably 2 years at least now.
Yes, thank you for the question, and a very fair one. We've been in the process where we've paused a bunch of projects while we really adjust to the new volume requirements that are being put on us in terms of the number of homes. Also looking really hard at where's the most need and the best cost-effective places to build. We're very close to completing that review, and we'll be confirming the outcomes of that. And in cases like the one you're talking about, either we'll reconfirm that we are going to build there, or we will confirm that we think that we will build there, but not for some time, but we'll hold it, or else we'll be selling that land and returning it. And we certainly don't want to be land banking. And so there's probably about 20% of our current land holdings that we'll be looking to sell and sell back into the market, because we want them to be out there and being developed for housing in the private sector, for example. So we're making sure we're getting the balance right between keeping what we need to meet demand for social housing in the coming years, but not hanging on to things that are excess to requirements.
Does that answer the question?
When is that?
Oh.
No, not really, because when is it likely to happen? Because it's affecting the values of all the properties, because we're privately owned. So, we own our own property.
So we're completing that review and confirming the results of what's happening with those projects within the next month.
Within the next month, and then the land will be either sold or developed.
That's correct,
right.
Yes. So the sales process may take longer if that's what we're doing. I obviously can't comment on the specific property, but there is clarity coming. We know that's taken a while, but that we're very close within the next month.
There you go, John. Thank you very much. The other thing was I've just done the Architects Awards in Auckland and Wellington, and Kāinga Ora Developments won award. The architects who designed them won awards, and they are beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But at what cost?
Yeah, so I think firstly it's really important that we build houses that are safe, dry, warm, and also actually fit in with the community, right?
Yeah.
And the team's rightly proud of, I think, some of those developments in the awards.
They're gorgeous, yeah.
They were quite costly, and
Okay.
I think what we're trying to do now is ensure we don't completely flip the other way, because we don't want people living in ugly shoeboxes, but also I think we need to be more cost effective and be very thoughtful about kind of what we're building, and we're confident that we can do that, and it's been a huge focus and we're seeing real results in terms of our unit build costs already.
I totally get that if you're living in a lovely home, you're less likely to trash it than if you're living in a squalid, soulless slum. But at what cost? I mean, is there a way of doing it?
There absolutely is, and we're committed to building quality homes that are good for our people to live in and that aren't ugly in the community. And so we can absolutely do that. Are we going to be winning as many architectural awards? I hope so, but that might be a little bit more challenging, but I'm confident that they will be quality homes that we can be proud of and that our tenants will enjoy living in.
And will people be buying them 80 years from now the way the old state houses were built?
Possibly. We're certainly building them to last at least 50 years. We're long-term holders, long-term landlords, and so they've got to be built to last.
Newstalk ZB 1024.
It's planting time. Auckland Council and local nurseries are giving away native seedlings. Help bring native birds back to Tāmaki Makaurau. Find out more at ourauckland.nz/plant natives. All together Auckland, Tāmaki Turiki.
Rebels back with a fresh round of MVP deals you won't want to miss. A lineup of offers from the biggest names. Stay ahead of the game with the latest gear. Check out the MVP selects in store and online now. Only at Rebel Sports.
Imagine the breathtaking views of the Eiffel Tower at night, the festive atmosphere on the streets of Strasbourg, and journeying across Europe for the enchanting festive season. Across 20 unforgettable days, experience Christmas markets in Europe on You Travel and Cruise Warkworth's fully escorted tour from November to December 2026. Don't miss the chance to create memories of a lifetime. To book, search You Travel and Cruise Warkworth online or call 09 425 7989.
Looking to grow your savings with confidence? Exeter, a Reserve Bank of New Zealand licensed deposit taker, currently offers 5.35% per annum for a 12-month term deposit. Thousands of Kiwis already trust Exeter to support their wealth goals. Now it's your turn. Visit xceda.co.nz today. Exeter's deposit accounts are offered pursuant to a product disclosure statement available on our website, xceda.co.nz. T's and C's apply.
Hi, Graham Austin here from Corson Maize. We've been asking our growers why they grow Corson Maize.
You get the job done and get a good result at the end, and that's why you need to make sure you pick the right people. Corson's, for us, is the right people to deal with.
We recommend and we grow Corson on our own blocks because the team from Corson do a great job of looking after us.
The backup, the infrastructure, the seed on time, free advice, just all professional, and I've stuck with it, and it's just gone from strength to strength.
If you're not growing Corson Maize, then you really are missing out.
When choosing a hearing aid, it's hard to know where to start. Get your free copy of the Consumer's Guide to Hearing Aids, New Zealand's only independent guide. Find out about all the best hearing aids with feature, style and price guides, so it's easy to choose the right hearing aid for your lifestyle and budget. The Consumer's Guide to Hearing Aids is available exclusively from Triton Hearing. Call 0800 45 45 42 for your free copy or visit tritonhearing.co.nz.
Auckland, 89.4 FM. Kerre Woodham Mornings. Engaging conversation on Newstalk ZB.
I'm with Matt Crockett, the Chief Executive of Kāinga Ora. Jenny, you have a question.
Yeah, sorry, I've actually got a few. I just want to know, when a family is in a home and, like, the parents have passed away, why is the home passed on to the children when there are so many houses? And when they're quite capable of going to work and getting their own house, but they've been living there as adults, why is it passed on to them?
I mean, I have to admit I'm not fully across the policy that we have on that, but what we wouldn't be doing would be housing over certainly an extended period people who don't meet the requirements for being on the MSD waitlist. That said, there's obviously a degree of compassion and consistency if there's a family who's just had a bereavement. So I don't know the exact policy on that and would need to come back on it. But ultimately they need to meet the requirements to be on the MSD waitlist.
So if the adult children in the home are working, capable of putting a roof over their head, I mean, you wouldn't biff them out the next day after their mum dies, but you'd ask them to move on and find their own accommodation.
Yeah, that would be my expectation. I don't know of a policy that's different than that. I can look into that.
Yeah.
Right, just a friend I went to school with, she has a home, a state home, and her mother, because it was her mother that passed away, so she lost the house that she got, but she moved into her lovely mum's state house in Ponsonby, and she's pretty much been, and she's, 50 now? 60, sorry, and she's still living in a state house. So she's been in the state house almost all her life, and she's just had, and, you know, she's quite capable of getting her own place. And I've seen a couple of state houses pulled down in Mount Albert, and the land has been sitting there for 3 years.
That's what Matt was just saying, that they're undergoing a review, and that's going to be announced in a month.
I started hearing that when I turned on. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Well, that answered that question. Newstalk ZB 10:29.
Newstalk ZB Auckland. Time saver traffic.
Planning a holiday? Pack your Southern Cross travel insurance. Now to the Northern Motorway. Reports of a breakdown between Greville Road and Upper Harbour. If you can update us, 0800 jammed. The Southern Motorway moderate flows Ellerslie through to Green Lane. No delays on the Northwestern or the Southwestern. Get your Southern Cross travel insurance quote online at scti.co.nz. Time saver traffic.
Gentlemen, is your performance in the bedroom letting you down? Here's some good news. Introducing Caruso's Erectomate. Caruso's Erectomate is a unique herbal and nutritional formula designed for men to support a healthy libido, stamina and sexual function. So gentlemen, if you'd like to support your performance and reignite the passion in the bedroom, try Caruso's Erectomate today. Caruso's Erectomate comes with a 100% money-back guarantee. Available only from Chemist Warehouse. Read the label and use as directed. Caruso's Health Sydney.
Thinking tiny homes? Stop scrolling them online and check out the real thing at a House Me Show Home site. If you're after a family home, granny flat or rental, there's a House Me Show Home near you, with 7 locations across both islands. Code compliant, built to last, and all with that new home smell. You don't get that on the internet. Find a location and opening times at houseme.co.nz. House Me, the biggest name in tiny homes.
Nothing draws people closer than the intimate warmth of fire, especially as the chill of winter descends. To experience the very latest in fireplace luxury, you only need one place. The Fireplace. Indoor, outdoor, wood, gas and electric, including the stunning new Vision Line Taurus, New Zealand's lowest emission double-sided wood burner. For luxurious warmth this winter, visit thefireplace.co.nz.
Enjoy winter at your place, surrounded by style. Discover your stunning new look at Danske Möbler Furniture's huge winter sale. Up to 50% off the latest looks in quality furniture at Danske Möbler, furniture for living.
Hi, Kate Roger, French Film Festival patron here. Experience the French Film Festival, May 28th to June 22nd. A fantastic lineup of 23 fabulous films. Head to frenchfilmfestival.co.nz or book at your local cinema.
Newstalk ZB headlines.
With Blue Bubble taxis, it's no trouble with a blue bubble. Sky City is suing Fletcher Building and Fletcher Construction over the time it's taken to build Auckland's International Convention Centre. Winston Peters is accusing Don Brash and Helen Clark of relevance deprivation syndrome after they criticised his approach to China. Elon Musk's explosive fallout with Donald Trump is escalating, with the billionaire now claiming that Trump's tariffs will cause a recession. A major milestone has been reached in flood protecting the South Island town of Franz Josef, the completion of stop banks on the north side of the Waiho River. Inland Canterbury and central Otago are in the firing line for snow today, and black ice has been causing crashes on Southland roads. Dock decides not to reopen popular campsite damaged by Cyclone Gabrielle. Find out more on that one at NZ Herald Premium. Back to Kerre Woodham.
Malcolm, thank you. It is 28 minutes to 11. Matt Crockett, Chief Executive from Kāinga Ora, is with us. I've got a number of texts, Ryan and Muzz and a couple of other tradies, and this is a common talking point too when I have people phone in about Kāinga Ora builds, that when it comes to the actual build, contractors are having a laugh when it comes to invoicing government departments. It's double what a private builder would do for a private job. So how do you keep track of not inflating your invoices when you're billing the government?
Yeah, so we've got a huge focus, firstly, on getting our build costs down, and within that, really both within the build space, but more broadly, building the procurement capabilities. And we've brought in some expertise on that, and we're in the process of building out that, and we've got a new head of procurement starting shortly. So that's a huge focus for us. I don't think it's correct to say that we're twice the cost of the market. I think we've been over market. Our commitment is to get to market. And we are, in the coming months, going to be starting to publish our build costs per square metre on an average basis,
right,
so that we can actually show the progress that we're making. But with what we are being able to contract, we're seeing substantial reductions from where we were, and we may not be there yet, but we're getting much closer to market. And we're going to be very transparent with the public on that.
Well, it's just amazing that you're going to know, because I don't think under the previous administration they would have known. What on earth was going on there? It was like they had an unlimited budget to do whatever they wished.
No, I think they did know what their build costs were, but the big focus, I think, again, on the direction that they were getting and the policy of the time was to focus on speed of build and building, and that the commercial side of it was a little bit secondary, and I think that balance was needed to be rectified, and that's part of what our reset plan is. So we're still building a lot. We're doing a lot of building still, not quite as much as what was there, but we've got to do it a lot more cost effectively. And look, I say this to our people all the time, which is, look, there's no money tree here. So every dollar that we waste or we don't spend as efficiently and effectively as we can is a dollar we're not spending on social housing. So my aim is that the better we get at that, the more social housing we can do and the less drain we have on the taxpayer.
Is it a huge, meaty, difficult to get your head around kind of job?
You mean my overall job?
Yeah.
Well, on one hand, yes, it's a big job, but at the end of the day, particularly with the direction we've got now to just really focus back to being a good social housing provider, is we basically build and maintain quality social houses and be a good, supportive but firm landlord to our tenants. So we've got very clear direction. We're getting much more focused, and really a bit of my challenge has been to get the organisation focused back onto that core thing and more focused on the commercial side of the equation. They're reacting extremely well. We're making really good progress, but plenty of work to go.
So that was what was lacking, the focus.
I think that Kāinga Ora got asked to do quite a lot of things outside that core social housing focus in urban development and proving new building methods and a whole bunch of other things, all of which were worthy but just distracted the organisation. And I think the other thing is the organisation just grew too big. And when I came in, there's a bunch of great people, but too many people tripping over each other, too much paperwork flying around. So part of my challenge has just been getting the place more focused on that core social housing mission and more focused on commercial sustainability, as well as continuing to build and do great things for our tenants.
Because one of the things about Kāinga Ora that really alarmed a lot of us as taxpayers was the debt that it had accrued just in that complete race to build as many houses as they possibly could. I think 2060 was when we were going to look to get on top of that debt. How do you wrangle that?
Well, I think any time...
While still building houses.
Yeah, any time you build quickly and at scale, you need to take on debt, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's public debt, right? So there's an opportunity cost for that elsewhere. But with our reset plan, I think debt peaks this year and then will be coming down. So while we're still renewing a whole bunch of our houses, so we're still going to be doing 2,000 a year, where we're either going to be completely replacing a house, probably about 1,600 of those, and another 400 of retrofits, because we've got a lot of pretty old, pretty ordinary, 50s, 60s, 70s type houses and sometimes before. And we'll be able to do that while still reducing debt. And as I said, I've got a lot of focus with the team on just pushing even further to see, well, what more can we do to be even more cost effective so that we can get that happening faster and get the debt down faster. But by the same token, if we are asked to grow and build again, debt will go up again, right? But it comes with assets. Like we've got $48 billion of assets in Kāinga Ora.
All right. John, good morning to you.
How are you?
Good. A question for Matt?
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I was actually listening to him just now, and I don't think he knows.
Do you have a question or not?
I do.
Right. What is it?
The Kāinga Ora houses are full of...
Okay, I don't think we're going anywhere there. Hello, Sue.
Good morning. Thank you for this. I would like to ask Matt, what are you doing to help the people with disabilities, sensory and physical disabilities? Because some of the places getting into them, there's little lips and there's no colour contrast around doorways or anything like that. So it's quite difficult, especially for the vision impaired, because I have a very bad habit of banging into things because there's no colour contrast. And I've got friends in wheelchairs that cannot get into my place because of a small lip at doorways and things like that. So what kind of things are you looking at doing towards supporting people with disabilities?
Yes, I'll thank you for the question. And look, there's been a big focus and will continue to be a big focus on trying to ensure we've got accessibility and other things to support people with disabilities. And, part of the reason that our build costs are higher than they might be in the private sector is we try and keep the flexibility, both specific features but also space and other flexibility, so that over time, if we do get disabled tenants, we have been building universal accessibility homes, and our intention is to continue to do so. We are working with the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development to make it clear from them what it is that they would like us to build, because we really build what we're commissioned to build by them, and I think part of what they're reviewing is the degree to which we'll have those universal accessibility type houses and how much of our mix that should be. Do we have it right everywhere? No. Is it a huge focus? Yes. If there's someone who is injured, we work with ACC to try and get an assessment and then get things retrofitted in there. But we've put a lot of focus, but we can always do more, and we really do want to make these great places for all of our tenants.
Is yours an older place, Sue, or does it need to be retrofitted, or is it a new one?
Mine's about 30-year-old where I am. It's a unit. Yeah. And the biggest problem, there's a couple of problems. One is, as I said, the lips getting in. The back door, nobody in a wheelchair or with physical disability can get out there. It's too dangerous. And in my bathroom, the showers are so slippery that when the floors are wet, it's exceedingly dangerous.
Right, so I guess with the 30-year-old home, that would need to be maybe a non-stick mat?
I've got one of those, but they still slip.
Right, okay. Thank you, sir.
Part of the renewal program that we've got is that when we replace those older houses, we'll be, with the new ones that we're replacing them with, we'll be trying to address the kind of things you're talking about. We won't be able to have the full features everywhere, but just avoiding things like lips and things like that.
Yeah, just the obvious stuff. This is one that came up constantly too a couple of years ago. Might be over now. What's Kāinga Ora doing to address claims that they consistently overbid for land in existing houses? They were competing with private sector developers and also private and first home buyers. I guess that's gone by the by now. There isn't that edict to get as many houses and put as many people in as possible?
Yeah, so a couple of things with that. One of them is that for a period, Kāinga Ora was asked to actually do urban development that was nothing to do with social housing, and that was where some of those big property acquisitions were. We will still be acquiring land from time to time, though in the short term, as I said, we've actually got excess land, so that won't be an issue for the next while. And it will be important to bring the sourcing and commercial discipline to that. I think that the Kāinga Ora team believes that they were doing that. I don't really want to debate the past. And I think at the time they were sourcing the land they were asked to do and thinking they were trying to get, and in their belief it was at the market rates. And I haven't seen anything that suggests that's not the case, but it won't be an issue moving forward because we won't be buying any land in the near term. So,
good to hear. Thank you very much. Newstalk ZB, it's 18 to 11.
Right now, whooping cough is on the rise in Aotearoa. It is a serious and sometimes deadly illness, especially for babies too young to be vaccinated. In fact, over half of infected babies under 12 months will end up in hospital. And sadly, some may not survive. So, if you're planning to visit whānau or friends with babies this summer, especially newborns, make sure you're up to date with your whooping cough immunisation at least 2 weeks before seeing them. This will greatly reduce the chances of passing it on to the precious little ones. And of course, if you have a cough or are feeling a little under the weather, save those baby cuddles for another day. Let's protect our most valuable taonga. Immunise. Talk to your trusted healthcare professional today.
Now you don't buy a bed every day to get a good night's sleep. Don't give your money away.
Don't sleep on this deal. Well, actually do. Visit Bedpost today for a Sealy Posturepedic bed that suits your body, your budget, and your desperate need for proper sleep. For super sharp Sealy savings, head in store or visit bedpost.co.nz.
You need to know. With Bedpost, you can sleep on it.
Way back in 47, Waitomo started out believing in one thing, that Kiwis deserved a better deal when it came to fuel. Hard to argue with that. That's why today, all these years later, they're still making sure real savings go back into Kiwi pockets and local communities. Waitomo, Kiwis fueling Kiwis for over 75 years.
This land's a gift to you and to me.
London, 1965. A young rock and roller grabs the studio mic, his deliberate stutter becoming the perfect embodiment of a cultural shift.
2, 1.
My Generation. Like great tracks that have stood the test of time, Barker's men's clothing has been the #1 choice for every single hanger in your wardrobe for generations. Visit in-store or at barkersonline.co.nz.
LifeCare delivers tailored health checks, first aid training and pre-employments nationwide, on time and on budget. Smart reporting, fast results, real insight. Visit lifecare.co.nz. LifeCare, empowering people to live well and save lives.
Hard opinion, robust talkback. It's Kerre Woodham Mornings with pinnaclelife.co.nz. Easy online life insurance. Newstalk ZB.
Newstalk ZB, it is 10:45. We have the Chief Executive of Kāinga Ora taking your questions. I just wanted to ask one on these. You've talked about some vulnerable tenants that you have. You know, people who might need. These headphones are doing my head in. People who might need a bit of extra support and care. I also saw that there'd been a large number of layoffs at Kāinga Ora. Is that going to impact on the sort of care that you're going to be able to give, the extra care you're going to be able to give to the tenants who need it?
No, absolutely not. That's our first priority, is to make sure that we don't go backwards on our tenant management.
Yeah.
So, for example, in our recent restructures, there's been no impact on our frontline tenant managers.
Right.
And where there is any other changes, they were mostly overhead or things that were directly related to volume. So we are 100% committed to making sure that we're going to be providing the same or better service than we are. We're just looking at ways to do it more cost effectively. And that's what people should expect to see.
Yeah. I remember listening to the chap from Monte Cecilia, and he said that his tenant managers had fewer clients to look after so they could nip problems in the bud, and he thought that was a large part of the reason why there were unruly tenants with Kāinga Ora, is that the property managers just didn't have enough time to get to see the tenants because they were so overloaded.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we're putting a lot of focus on what are the things that are wasting our tenant managers' time. So how can we, through technology and through process redesign, etc., allow them to do more? And also just looking at, we've done a lot of research into the needs of our customers, of our tenants, and then how can we do a better job when we're onboarding them to really help them connect with the right support, really understand their needs, and then how do we make sure that we can focus our efforts on the highest needs tenants who need the most support, whereas there's a whole bunch of our tenants who just pay their rent, get on with life and don't need a huge amount of support. So we're trying to be a little bit more sophisticated about understanding their needs and adapting our model. But as I said, we're not cutting costs there at the minute. We haven't taken out any tenant managers, but we are looking for more efficient ways for how we can tackle that.
Just on that, Peter has a question. Good morning to you, Peter.
Thank you very much. I can see a common cause, a common problem arising here. Who gets priority? Is it families with children, or is it just husband and wife? Can they get a house, or do families with children, do they get priority?
Kāinga Ora actually doesn't make those decisions. The Ministry of Social Development has very clear criteria, and they assess the need on the wait list, and they'll balance things like, are there children, is there a disability, is there other things that are challenges, and we then place the people that the MSD asks us to place.
I would have thought you would have some say in who your tenants might be.
No, that's not really the way it works. Now, we obviously work collaboratively with MSD to go, right, where's the best house that's the fit for this family or for this individual or this couple. But no, we actually are effectively given that this is the tenants that are the next off the wait list. Can you help us find some houses for them?
Right, but generally the ones at the top of the list would be families with kids or mums or dads with kids.
They would be high up there, but there's other factors as well, like if they have a disability or if they've got mental challenges or if they've got some other things. So those things will all be taken into consideration. But clearly, getting families out of emergency housing, for example, has been a really huge priority. And, it's worth calling out that that we've been, one of the biggest, if not biggest, contributors to getting down the emergency housing list because they're going into our homes. So families will always get a heavy weighting, but there's other things that MSD takes into consideration.
What about when it comes to the mix of who goes into a housing development, a Kāinga Ora housing development? Like there's a lot of single men who need homes, but, they're probably down the list. But then would you want to put 18 single men in an 18 one-bedroom unit block? Or do you try and mix up generations and...
Look, Kerre, you've touched on something that's absolutely super critical for getting this right, because if you put the wrong groups of people or the wrong individuals in the wrong situation, you are asking for trouble.
Yeah.
So again, we work very collaboratively with MSD to avoid that and try and get people in the right place. And quite interestingly, coming back to the disruptive behaviour, sometimes, and people out there in the private sector will know this as well, is sometimes there's just a bit of a falling out between neighbours, and if we move the tenant somewhere else, there's no more problems.
Yeah.
So not only when they first go in, but on an ongoing basis, just being thoughtful about where we put people and why they're going to fit and where they won't fit is absolutely critical. So we put a lot of focus on that.
Yeah, because if I was moving into a housing development, I wouldn't want to just see people who look like me all the time. I'd like to see kids, and I'd like to see men, and I'd like to see, a variety of people.
Yeah, and we do that both in the placements, but even before that in the way that we're looking at our developments and what we build. So quite often we might have apartment style things and then around them more terraces or something, and then a shared open area or a community garden or something, so you get a bit of a mixture of people.
Nice.
And we find those work well, particularly if they're close to amenities.
Okay, I'm just going to read out these two texts here before we go to the break. I would like to thank Matt for the good work he both has done and continues to do. It's a thankless task and he handles the job and the knockers really well, says Tony. And Andy says, I'm really enjoying this interview. He speaks very well and has his head around his role. Very refreshing. It is.
Thank you.
You can't really say much to that really except thank you, can you? It is 9 to 11.
From 0% finance and no deposit across the entire Hyundai range. Test drive Santa Fe, Tucson, Kona and more at your local Hyundai dealership. Offer must end June 30th. Visit hyundai.co.nz for TCs, fees and lending criteria.
For a very limited time, there's 40% off. That's right, a fabulous 40% off absolutely everything. But hurry, it's going fast. Think lighting. Think Lighting Direct.
If there's one thing we've learned from this week's weather, it's this. A clothes dryer is essential in Auckland. But if the massive power bills spike after weeks of tumble drying have you bothered, Magnus Benro's offer this week is the solution. The Fisher & Paykel 9kg heat pump dryer. Now this is a dryer. Being a heat pump dryer, it's way more efficient than conventional ones. We're talking about a 9-star energy efficiency rating. That's because it dries differently. It's a condenser dryer, which means it doesn't need outside venting. It's also big. 9 kilo capacity means added efficiency. You can dry a whole lot of laundry in one go. So if you've been muttering to yourself about needing a better dryer, this is the better dryer. The Fisher & Paykel 9kg heat pump dryer at $2,199 from Magnus Benro. It'll save you even more than that in power over the long run. Magnus Benro, Green Lane or Constellation on the North Shore. Shop online, magnusbenro.co.nz.
Your pressure is gone and your cylinder's cold. Well, you just might find that it's getting old. See the cylinderguide.co.nz. You want to move a new one from here to there, but you need someone who really cares. See the cylinderguide.co.nz. For all hot water cylinders supplied and installed, see the Cylinder Guy, cylinderguide.co.nz. You see the cylinderguide.co.nz.
Get unbeatable value with Carpet Court and Curtain Studios' cozy, comfy winter sale. Feel your toes snuggle into our soft rhino carpet with up to 25% off. Keep out the cold with 50% off studio thermal blinds with superior insulation. Get half-price making and lining on studio fabrics, custom made in just 10 days. Or DIY with budget-friendly ready-mades to create a healthier home today. See us at Carpet Court and Curtain Studio and make your home cozier this winter.
Newstalk ZB, that went quickly. You'll be able to go back to your real job very, very shortly. Thank you, Matt. What are the things you've found about the role since you took it over?
Well, I think I was going to call out maybe some misconceptions, and I'd say there's two. One of them is a misconception that every Kāinga Ora tenant's a rat bag and, doesn't deserve their house or whatever. Like the vast majority of our tenants don't cause any trouble, are great Kiwis, have various challenges or needs and giving them stable social housing really helps them. So that's one misconception. And the other one would be that Kāinga Ora is staffed by a bunch of incompetent numpties, which is just absolutely not the case. There's a bunch of passionate, capable people doing great work. They just need to be focused on the right things, and we're making huge strides, and I'm very proud of our people and how they're coming to the party to get behind the new plan. So,
is the aim to get people into social housing, to give them a chance to get back on their feet and then out again? Is it a trampoline rather than a safety net, or is it a safety net that people can stay in?
I think it's certainly trampoline is the aim of what it should be about. Does that happen as often as in practices as maybe we'd like? I think that's still a work in progress, and that's a policy matter and a policy issue. Our real role here is to make sure that we can provide quality homes, maintain well, and that we give our tenants good support while also being firm with them around expectations of their behaviour. And that's the core of what we're about in Kāinga Ora.
Yeah, see, straight back, drilling down to what the job is, which is really refreshing, I have to say, after what we've done. Thank you so much for taking the time. And maybe if you haven't been horrified by the experience, you'd come back again.
It was a pleasure, Kerry.
Oh, good.
Happy to come back.
Good. And thank you very much to those of you who took the time to call and text. We do appreciate it. Very good questions. Taking us to the news is Alex Warren and Ordinary. It is 3 to 11.